How are you? Welcome to DCP Talks. I am Stephen Candace. I'm an author. And this will be my feature podcast on Fridays at 7 p.m. Okay, every Friday. This is second season. We had season 1 already. We had 13 episodes. Season 2, we're going to have about the same episodes. But let's go ahead and get to the fact of, tomorrow's Valentine's Day. I'm a hopeless romantic. I don't know about a lot of people out there, but man, if you are a hopeless romantic, it's where you need to be. You got to treat your partner and treat them well because they do a lot for you. And let's make sure we understand that. They are and do a lot for us. So to me, I think that is, it's part of the thing. So ladies and gentlemen, my podcast is going to be talking about things that make us go home. There's a lot of things out there that make us go home. So, it is what it is. Now, you can check out information on my website anytime about anything, books, podcasts, and upcoming events. And that is at authorstephencandace.com. So www.authorstephencandace.com. There you go. Let us enjoy our lives, check everything out around us, and then have a great time because life is short. Right? And everything will fall into place. I will discuss my books. I have wrote 58 books in various styles. We're including fantasy, horror, Western, crime, drama, romances. There is so many different, type of books for anybody out there. There's even a cookbook. And there's even a drawing book for kids, a coloring book. So there you go. My general topic for today is actually going to be about my Audible books. I have 24 Audible books, and and if you want to, listen to Audible books, I have some in fantasy by 6 of them by Brad Derry. 5, I apologize. And Brad is a emotional character, so he plays the roles of the kings, of the whatever it is, the witches and warlocks, and it's amazing to hear his story because it just kind of throws you off at first, but then you get into the story as he reads it, and it's perfect, And I have 2 stories by Gloria Stokes, romances, and then we have. Jason Garrett has 2 dramas, thrillers, which are really good. And then we have Kathleen Marani. She has done 2 books, Prime and Escape. Okay, not Escape, I apologize, Crybaby. So those are really 2 good books for, a bunch of books for everybody on Audible to listen to. It is what it is. Now, why Audible? I mean, let's be really serious out there. When you're talking about Audible, why Audible? Okay, it makes logical sense. Everybody seems busy at your day in lives. And what is wrong with, especially people who do deliveries? Why aren't you listening to a book? Just chill on a book. You get to a good part, you're cruising and you can't wait, and then you got to stop. Seriously? You're like, I got to finish this. Or, what about people who's doing housework? What about people who jog? People who are walking their dogs? I listen to audibles in my car all the time. Do you know, back in the 90s and 2000s, whenever I had to travel from Toronto to Niagara Falls I lived in, and I would travel to Buffalo and then travel to Toronto on certain days. Well, Audible was the way to go. I listened to more books that year than I ever read in my entire life. My very first book I ever wrote, I love it. Hey, I wrote that fucking book. Every day I read, it was Jaws. Believe it or not. Yep, Jaws. Salem's Lot was my second book. Very interesting about those things. It's just what it is. Now, I'm always going to bring up the why factors because of the fact of it's been there since the end of time, and we really want to know what is going on. So to me, I think the why factors is where to go, and I think it's, how we can do it. So to me, yeah. And which brings me, my sister and I were talking about my aunt. I have an Aunt Nunya. Okay, she was about 80 years old. I was only about 7. And we were about the same height. That shows you how short the woman was. And she used to have these candies. They were pink pills. They looked like giant pills. And she would have them in this crystal little jar, whatever you want to call it, on top of her mantle. over her fireplace. And I remember I would sit there on her couch and we would wait for her to give us one of those candies. And then growing up, it just made me laugh because something so simple was yet so amazing. So to me, yeah, you know what? It was pretty good. So, I mean, they're just one of those memories. We all have them. We all have those little cherished memories of something sweet and kind and good. We all do. No matter if it was a grandparent, an auntie, no matter if it was someone nice, a school teacher, we all have it. So enjoy that and just keep those good memories going well. All right, here we go now. We have 3 guests that are here to join us today. That is really cool. They said they have some questions, and I told them they could come on and ask the questions, and then I would answer their questions. I think that's pretty fair. What do you think? I think that's pretty fair. So, our first guest we have is going to be from New York City. Yeah, he's a pizza maker, Mr. Steak Filet. Cool. Yo, I'm Mr. Steak Filet. How are you? I was busy making pizza. It's so fucking busy right now. Everything is kind of crazy in my world, So, what I can't get a hold of, So I have some questions. If you could help me figure out a routine. I can't seem to get a routine down. I don't know when I'm supposed to write, when I can write. I'm just confused. Then the other thing is about motivation. How do I stay motivated? I get all confused at times, And then what about the writer's block? That writer's block shit is just really it just fucks your brain up in that, So, and then how long am I supposed to take to finish a book? Like, what is that all about? I don't got all day. I don't got, it's supposed to take me a year, 2 years. It makes about sense then, and then, by the way, when I was, I was listening to your podcast last week and you said, The Warriors. Yeah, it was a great flick. The Warriors came out in 1979, not 1978. So let's get that straight, okay? Now, if you can answer those questions for me, I would really appreciate it, okay? Thanks, Mr. DCP. We'll talk to you. Answer my questions. Thanks. Well, thank you very much for those questions, Mr. Filet. I really appreciate it. So let's go ahead and, talk about those questions. You said, a routine. All right. My routine for writing is I like to write in the day and then in the afternoon, and that's when I edit shit, and that's when I go do other things, and then I come back, and that's when it gives my brain a break. Now I separate the times of what I do. Now that's what I do. Now how do I stay motivated? It is a challenge, but I'll tell you what, I write 2 books at one time, always have. I find it easier. It makes sense to me. And that's how I do it. That's what happens then with the writer's block. Sometimes writers do get blocked. It is true. That's why I write 2 books. Another thing that helps me when I get writer's block, believe it or not, I go listen to an Audible. I go and then I watch or read a book or watch a movie because it just escapes my brain. That's why I like the Audibles. I go walk my dogs. I put my earmuffs on. I'm going and blowing. Maybe that's the way it's working. So what? And then how long does it take to finish a book? Really, in all reality, it depends on the writer. I can finish a book in 2 months. This is the slowest book that it's taken me, and it's been almost 2 months right now, and I still got another quarter to go because I just been busy. And then, how long does it take? It just depends on how fast you write, brother. That's all. I use a microphone and a dictation machine. So when I talk, it just types for me. And then, hey, I have a great editing program. So to me, anybody out there, do yourself a favor, buy a great editing program. Saves your life, and you don't have to use AI. Just get a good editing program. Now, by the way, the Warriors, thank you so much. That you're right. Absolutely correct. When I was in 1978, I was on a date, and I went to see Carrie. Carrie, it was in the fall of 78. And then I remember that's whenever I seen the first commercial, how they show your trailers for the next year coming up. And the Warriors was coming out, and I think it was February. But thank you very much. What a dynamite freaking flick. It was good. Thank you. Now, it looks like we have guest number 2, Mr. Jose T. Cuervo. Hey, brother, how are you doing? Come on up and join us, all right? All right. Hey, what's up? What's up? How are you, man? Yeah, I got some questions for you, man. When I'm laying down, I'm just chilling, and I'm trying to think about writing a new book. So, what advice would you give to a new writer, man? It's just, especially when my mind gets gay because I got little, hippie letters, and by the time I get to the thing, and then, and then when I see in all your books, I went on your website, man. You got a lot of books there, man. Which book are you excited about the most? Because, man, you got a lot of books, and there was so many different places. And then, are you writing more books? And how many more are you going to write in the next 5 years? Like, I can't even get one done. So, what advice would you give to new writers? Are you going to have a thing in 5 years? And, is this a legacy for you? Because, see, when I'm like me and I'm chilling in the villain, and after I write a book, I don't know of how many I can write, but you got like so many. So that's my questions for you. Okay, Mr. DCP, let us know, man, so we can really figure this out. All right? Cheers. Well, that was really quite interesting. Thank you, Mr. Jose T. Cuervo. It is a challenge at times, especially being a new writer. And the only advice I can give you is keep yourself organized, keep yourself on pace, and don't go too slow. You got to be, keep your mind. Your mind moves fast, so why aren't your writing moving fast? Be organized. So give yourself characters, give the characters, their who they are, what they represent. Then you have your places. Then you have your chapters. I like to write chapters. I like to do a lot of chapters first, and that way then I know where I'm going. I always write my ending first, and that way then I know where my beginning is going to start. That's just me. Everything else is a filler, and I can do that. Now, the most exciting book I think right now I have is my Zoran series is really cool, but I like my Prairie series. I like romance and prairie, and I'm going to change to, I think, my new book's coming up. I am writing a new Viking book, though. Yes, The Armada. The book 2 of Pigeons and Crows, The Viking's Tale. Yes. So I am writing that right now as we speak, as well as I'm writing The Prairie Life, book 3 on one family's journey. So that's pretty cool. So that's probably where in 5 years, I'm one of those where I never have looked into the future too far because I'm a reality-based person. I want to make sure that everything here is where it's supposed to be. That's just who I am, and that's how I do it. What legacy do I have, actually? You know what? I want my grandkids to be able to read one of my books or listen to one of my Audibles. I'm going to start doing my own Audibles as well. If I had the time, okay? Seriously, I don't have time. Who's got time? That's why I listen to Audible, because I don't have time to do shit no more. Like anybody else, you don't got time. The time you get running, getting kids, running here, running there, doing this, doing that shit. Who's got the time, brother? So, my legacy is leaving them. When you type in my name on Google, Stephen Candace, baby, pages. It ain't one. Pages come up. There you go. That's what I am going to do. And I love it. To me, it's great. Cheers. Now, when we're talking about, I have a third guest. So my third guest is Billy Joe. Boom, boom, Carter. Man, Billy Joe's a special one here, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you, he is going to have some questions for us. This should be an interesting one, all right? Let's see what Mr. Billy Joe Carter has to say. Well, hey, Mr. Steve, how you doing? I really like you. You look so handsome, and, the way you do things, But I do have some questions since this is a professional show. Okay, do you plan your stories free? Do you plan your stories, or do you write freely? Okay, it's just one of those questions. Okay, and then how do you build a character? Like, is he big? Is he, is he round? Is he, is he got a big pocket? Okay, okay, but see, I have trouble building characters, so it's really difficult for me. Can you help me, please? And then, do you publish, or do you traditionally sex. I mean, write books. I'm just curious, because, I don't know what to do on that. And then what about marketing, yourself? And then what about your books? How is it, to market, and, that's what I'm curious at, please. If you don't mind, can you answer those questions, please? And I'd be so happy with you. Thank you. Well, that was a special one there. Well, thank you, Mr. Billy Joe Boom Boom Carter. All right. I will answer those questions, though. Thank you for those questions. They were very interesting questions, for sure. Do I plan stories or write freely? Well, I think all of us who are writers, we plan a story out, and then when we get to points, we write freely. That's all there is to it. Many times whenever I plan a story out, like I said, you organize a story, man. You organize it, and then you plan it out, and then by the time you start writing, and then your brain just lets go. That's how I do mine. How do I build characters, man? Characters are, you know what? I use people around me. I've used people I know or worked with for many, many years. And, it's just one of those things. You just, you build them, and you make sure that you see something they do. You see their personality, and then you put things together. That's how I do it. There are many characters in books that are evil, and it could be someone but it's not an evil person. You just like their personality, and you think they would be a great character. That's how it should have been put. And therefore, that's what I do. Now, as far as self-publishing or traditional, I am a self-publisher. There is many ways to go, many self-publishing companies, and there's many traditional companies out there. Me personally, I can honestly tell you, I've never started this for the money. I like to write books. I've worked in a professional world. I've done well for myself. I do okay. I live well. I don't have to worry about those, things at this moment. So I have wrote because I had a major heart attack. Everything went down. Really, in 2010, I had a 5 bypass. Didn't work. All I have is a quarter heart working. So don't tell me you can't do shit, because I've been living with a quarter heart for 15 years, and I've been giving her, and every day I give her, because you know why? Because every life is too short, and I don't know when that life is going to end. So that's me, brother. So now, that's just me. The last question was, how do I market my books? Marketing is a endless battle. It is like any business will tell you, any marketer will tell you out there, it is a endless job. You have to stay on top of your stuff. You have to stay with the Joneses, as they say. You got to follow trends. You got to figure everything out. Man, I tell you what, marketing is an extremely difficult job, and that's why they have marketing agencies. Let's think about this shit. That's why they're a marketing agency, right? Now, so marketing your books, it's an endless job. Find something that fits your groove. It's all I can say. If you're going to have a business, first of all, I will tell you one thing. You need a website. That's it. If you're going to have a business, you need a central hub where people can reach you or you can reach out. And people have to know you. That's all there is to it. Love you, hate you, whatever you want to say. I get it, but guess what? You're going to have to. Okay? Now, we're going to change this up, and now let's get to the comedy side of this week's podcast. All right, this week's side of comedy side, I think is kind of humorous because, last week was the first time I took my brand new car through a car wash. I usually wash my cars by myself, in my own hands, by the way. Or I take it into one of the full services where they clean the inside and the outside same time shit. Yeah, that's me. So this was the first time I actually had to go to a car wash. And to me, the best part is, so I pull up all the way around the car wash, give the guy my ticket, put my window up, and I have a brand new Nissan Rogue. I don't know how to put it in neutral. It has the middle stick shift where it just goes one up, one south, reverse or drive. And reverse won't work unless you push the button. So I'm sitting here trying to put this thing in neutral. And this guy's looking at me and he's smiling because I'm like, I'm sorry, man. What do you want? I put my window down. So, dude, I don't know how to put this thing in neutral. And he's smiling. He goes, let me go spray the other side of the car. Well, as I'm looking all around and I'm trying to figure it out, I reach for my glove box to get the manual out. My other hand hits a button underneath the stick shift that I didn't know even existed, push the lever down, the car goes in neutral. So I was like, Jesus, Lord, have mercy. I was embarrassed. I was panicking. You know the way that shit sets in. It's just like going somewhere and you can't get your card out of your wallet, or you're doing something and you can't get it out. It's just funny how we all panic at that one moment in time. Panicking. Let me tell you about panicking. We were in Dominican Republic, all my family. So we all went as a family, and this is during the night. So we're drinking and we're out by the patio, and me and my daughter went out to the beach for a walk. Well, we walked through chairs. That's obvious. It's nighttime. It's chairs. On the way back, they had black little plastic tables that I didn't see. I ran over one and my leg got ripped open. And I'm talking about blood is squirting out of my leg. I get back to the chair and there's blood everywhere, all over my pants, right through my pants. My daughter goes, Dad. I look down. And not one to panic when it comes to shit like that. Steve panicked. It was awesome. I was like, call 911, call the medics, call the National Guard. My son's over there like, shut up. And I was like, there's blood. He goes, it's not that bad. My daughter looks at me, she goes, it's bad. I had to stuff a gauze inside my leg to stop the bleeding. Yeah, I was coming home to Canada the next day. So we just wrapped it up about 50 times with gauze, and then I waited till I got into Canada, and I went to the hospital the very first thing. Yeah, that was a really one. Another funny part about the comedy side, and all of us have done this, all of us with couples, you have clothes on the bed, and I have my stack of clothes on one side, and she has her stack of clothes after we do laundry naturally, right? Well, I go grab my black track pants out, and I start putting them on, and they won't go past my hips. All of a sudden, I'm looking down, and now they're already up at my ankles. And I look down, and I started laughing because as I pulled them off, I look at the back of the tag, and it says it's a small. And I started laughing because it was my wife's. Well, I'm 6 foot and 210 pounds, and she is about 5'6" and 120 pounds. So as you can tell, that shit didn't work out. Like, it was funny to me. It's almost the same thing has everybody watched this thing on TikTok? I trust my wife with a belt. Now, if you haven't seen that, this is the most insane shit that you can see. It's men sitting on stools, on a bar stool or a stool, and they put a cup or a can on top of their head. And then their wife holds the buckle side of a belt and goes to swipe the cup off their head or whatever it's there. And the videos are hilarious because how many women hit their husbands in the face? It is $1 million worth of funny shit. If that's something you want to see, me and my best friend Billy were watching this shit, and we died laughing because I ain't gonna trust my wife. Shit, she would hit my face for sure and knock the hell out of me. Oh, she'd laugh like hell. And Billy's like, oh, fuck that. I ain't doing that shit either. Guys actually do this shit. You must be nuts. That's all I'll say. God bless you. But you must be nuts. That's the same thing with, my wife, last week was mad about something, which is funny because she don't ever kind of get mad. So that's how I know she's not feeling well. Well, she got mad, and she got really seriously mad. So she got really mad, and it was the same day I cut my hair. So just before I wanted to ask her if she could trim the back of my hair with my clippers, she got really upset. And then I thought to myself and my son were and I were talking, and I said, I'm not asking her to trim my hair. She'll take those clippers and bam, I'll have a freaking strip right through the front of my head. So I said, no. So gentlemen and ladies out there, please be careful out there when it comes to wives. You got to be careful. It was only if they're angry. The other funny thing was, I was telling my son that I remember when I was living together with their mother. So we're talking about 1980. So back then, we lived in Tampa, Florida. And what the cool part was, my wife's friend Sherry used to make sequences and bikinis for strippers. So she asked my wife, because she found out my wife could sew. She asked my wife if she wanted to make outfits for her. Well, it turned out where my wife started making a lot of these outfits for this woman. Well, this woman all of a sudden didn't have the time to go to some of these strip clubs. So she asked me. Well, my wife didn't drive back then. So I guess I had to go. It was one of those things that I just had to go to take her. I really didn't feel like going, to a strip club, right? So, so then, we get to this strip club and we have a tote. Now I'm talking about a 2-foot by 3-foot tote. This thing is full of bikini tops, bottoms, G-strings, all kinds of different tassels, you name it, whatever titty tops there have, whatever it is, it's there. Okay. And so my job was to go with my wife, carry this, tote in, find a pool table while my wife rounded up the girls, and I would just dump all of these outfits on a pool table. Now, when you talk about Tampa, Florida, like Memphis, Tennessee, when you have one of these giant strip clubs, and I mean with a three-story building, when you're talking about a giant strip club, we're talking about 30 girls at one time, like 30. It could be 20. I have never seen, it was like a bargain basement. More girls throwing off their tops, putting on tops, taking off their bottoms. Man, it was such a bad job, but I had to do it. It was just terrible. I mean, to see all that, I seen more snatched than a pimp. It was terrible out there. I mean, all these girls just kept coming up and saying, how does this look? And, does this fit right? And I had to say yes or no. And I look at my wife and she just said, you eating it up now, aren't you? Oh, I would just say, this is terrible. I really need to leave soon because it's just, that's not on my character, right? So, but, that was one of the best things of all, So it was just one of the funny things I thought was awesome, right? Okay, now we're going to hit a little bit about my Broncos corner. Let's talk about my Broncos, man. I said we were going to talk about my Broncos. Inglewood, Colorado, California. Where the hell am I thinking? But Inglewood, California. Okay, Coach Sean Payton has announced a pair of changes are coming to the Broncos coaching staff. Sean Payton announced on Monday that he named Davis Webb as offensive coordinator and Logan Kilgore as quarterbacks coach. That's kind of a weird thing, quarterbacks coach. Why didn't I just say a quarterback coach? In the 2 seasons working with Bo Nix, Webb helped the Broncos signal caller become the only quarterback in NFL history to throw 7,500 yards with 50 touchdowns. Well, shit, I think that's pretty good. While winning at least 20 games in Bo's first 2 seasons. That's impressive. He also became just the 3rd quarterback in league history with 3,500 yards and 25 touchdowns in his first 2 seasons. The Broncos tied a franchise regular season record wins in 2025, while Nix tied an NFL record for the most wins by a quarterback across his first 2 seasons. Yep. That's Bo Nix for you. Yep, that's the boy that fucked up in the locker room before the big game. Now, I don't know about you, but it doesn't make a difference. All those stats look nice and pretty to be embarrassed about what you did before the major game. That's it. That's all I got to say about it. Where are you now? That's all. I know you'll be back next year, and I know we're going to do well. But come on, man. Stop that bullshit. Now, let's get to what about that Super Bowl. That Super Bowl was something else, wasn't it? It was exactly how I figured it would go down. I hosted a Super Bowl party. We had a great day, great time. It was packed in here in my house, and it was really good. We liked it. It was really actually pretty good. That was one of those things that, we figured, the Patriots, they did well. Patriots had a great season, but in the beginning of the season, they really didn't have anybody to face. Let's be honest. They really didn't have no challenge until towards the end. Otherwise than that, they did super well. Let's give them credit. They did better than us. They made it there. We didn't make it there. Thanks, Bo. But otherwise than that, really, I mean, the quarterback was just young, inexperienced, and, good for, dude. Seattle, he was with the Jets, and they traded him off, and Darnold or whatever his name is, Sam, yeah, whatever. But it shows you ain't my team. But now, so to me, as far as Super Bowl, it went exactly how it went. Congratulations, Seattle Seahawks. Okay, good job. Now we're going to get to things that make us go home. Some of these things that really, make us go home. Okay, what about strict parents? Are you the lucky one? See, back when I grew up, we had strict parents. We had parents that looked at you and said, wait till I get you home. We had parents that said, when I get a hold of you. And the worst part was when they did get home and when they did get a hold of you, they whooped your ass. It was no sitting down trying to talk to you about what you did and how your feelings are. Right. I could only imagine me, look at my dad. Stop. Breathe slowly. No. My dad would have already hit me 3 times. It was discipline. Let's be realistic. There is no more discipline. Now it's diplomacy with children. Where did diplomacy come in with raising children? They are your children, your responsibility, and yet you have to talk to them about what they're supposed to do. No. Like I tell my little great-grandson, no. And it's just the funniest thing when he goes, no. And, but yeah, so to me, it's like, no, hell no, it's discipline. And you got to be consistent. Both parenting, things that make you go home is watching kids out there going crazy, screaming in a Walmart, screaming. And parents just walk around like it's okay. Shoot, my mama would have backhanded my ass and said one more word. You want something more to cry about? I got something for you to cry about. Hey, that's called discipline and that's called parenting. It's not called strict. It's called parenting your children. Which brings us to, nowadays, is it a real house or a fake house? You know how you go in people's homes and everything looks so pretty and the people try to be a nice couple and they look all happy and shit. And when you leave, they're like got fucking fangs out and they got knives out and they're like, ah! In my world and my family's world, we're real. We're real shit. You walk in our house, and if a couple's mad at one another, we all know. And they just, because we don't hold back. It's not like something, it's like, yeah, just talk to her or whatever, you know what I mean? I ain't in the mood for her right now. Woo! Let me tell you, we're open, we're honest. We wear our feelings on our sleeves. And that's what makes us really amazingly cool to a lot of people out there because we're real. We say what we think. We're not rude about it, but we don't challenge. But we do debate if we don't like something, and we act on something we don't like compared to sitting back and watching shit go down. No, it doesn't work that way in our world. And that's what I appreciate. People always told me in the management world, I had 40 restaurants for many years. And when the one young lady told me one time, she said, Steve, you know why people don't like you? And I said, I don't know, baby. Why don't people like me? Well, you don't like you because you tell the truth. You're too honest. And I said, what? What do you mean too honest? People don't like hearing the truth. You know that, Steve. You know that, right? And I was like, well, I guess you had to take that in consideration, Same thing as whenever I learned about my tone. I didn't realize my tone sucked, and that's what makes it, real. It's fake or honesty. In our home, it's real. When I go to people's home and see fake, my dad always said, what was the old term? Money talks and bullshit walks. You can always see it. You just see it, And then it comes to walking to school. When I was a kid, I see parents out there getting pissed off about the child walking 2 kilometers to school. We had to walk like 2 miles to school, maybe 3. When I lived inside Detroit, we had to walk across the city to go to school. Or, there was different places we lived. In Florida was no fun sweep for kids. They had to walk like 10, 20 blocks. Like it was crazy. But it was one of the things. Walking to school, man, we had to walk uphill in the winter, no shoes, with the barely windbreaker. It was terrible. We had to use rags for scarves and stuff and stuff our coats with newspapers. Okay, it wasn't that bad, okay? But that's what people always try to get you to feel, And since it came a new year, I decided I wanted to join a gym. Hey, you know what? I went to the gym. I looked around. And then I decided to get in shape. So I said, fuck it. And I decided my shape was going to be a triangle. I said, I ain't doing this no more. That's just, that's just insane. And then, somebody asked me how bad it was, I said, man, marriage is okay. I said, I've been chased, I've been pushed, I've been screamed at, I've been named very abusively, and I was afraid for my safety. But I did it all in the name of marriage. I've been married 3 wives, so you can only imagine. Like I said, I was never one to be a hitter, a pusher, or shit like that. No, I don't believe in all that shit. But I am a verbal ass because, I say what I think. And, I don't sit there and call you names and stuff like that. I just tell you the truth and I don't like it. And I just, like bullshit. If I call a bullshit, I say BS. And that's it. So like I said, we're married 3 times. So, I really think that a lot of times it's an attitude problem, their attitude. So to me, that's what it always been like in my world anyways. The older we become, I remember, when I was looking down the street at a young couple, true story. And I was sitting there looking at them and I was like, man, I remember being that young, being that hot and sexy. And I was a good-looking young man. I'm a good-looking old man, but I was a good-looking young man, tall and, had a good body figure. And, the thing was, now I can't even look in the mirror at myself. Like sexy? No, I can't even spell it. I can only get to S-E. There ain't no XY. No, I don't think so. Like that shit is not happening. I look in the mirror and it's like I turn. I just look at heads up. Dude. There's nothing else matters. That's what I look at. And then I just get dressed. I make myself laugh. If you can't laugh at yourself, let me tell you, you got to be able to laugh at something. Which brings me to, I went out shopping, winters. And I went out shopping looking for first I was looking for my daughter something. Then I was looking for my wife something because Valentine's Day was coming up. My daughter's birthday just passed. So while I'm in winters, I'm standing there and I'm looking through some clothes and I'm, some pants, jogging pants, like, athletic class pants. And then there's a lady to my right and there was a lady across from me on the other side of the racks. Well, we're looking through some clothes and I'm looking back and forth. I'm looking across and seeing what the colors are, whatever it is, if I see something. Well, I turn my head to the left and there's an older lady. She had to be like 70, not much older than me, but you can tell she was older, definitely. And by the babushka she was wearing. Okay. And then with the purse clutched in her elbow. I mean, hello. But she's looking at me. She has this really, really weird look. So she looks at me and she has this really serious look. And then she says, "You with the wandering eyes and restless loins." And I actually had to stop and think, was she actually talking to me? And I smiled at her and I said, "Sweetie, my loins haven't been restless since my second marriage." And then I turned around and walked away. I thought to myself, shit, my loins, woo, I would love to set them free. I mean, hallelujah, right? Restless loins, don't give me a reason. Holla. I couldn't believe she said that. Restless loins. What is restless loins? I've never even heard of that fact. So I laughed like hell, And then, you're getting old too when someone calls at 9 p.m. and they ask if they woke you. Like, what shit is that? Like, people do that shit. And have you noticed the older we get, the earlier it gets late? Think about it. It's funny, eh? I was talking to my friend Mike, and I told him I got a new hearing aid, right? And he said, "Well, what kind is it?" And I said, "Oh, it's about $230." So we laughed and then I took it out and I said, "Well, this is useless, right?" And why is it when you're older, it takes so long to get anywhere or do something? It used to take me 5 minutes at the most to get dressed, get my shoes, get out of the house. Now it takes me 5 minutes just to put my pants and then my shirt and then my socks on. Then it's going to take me another couple minutes to get over to the coat, open it up, get my coat on. Then I got to get my gloves, not to mention which shoes I'm going to wear because if it's snowing outside, if it's not outside, then not to mention I got to go get my car. Now, why is it now I'm taking more trips to go get in my damn car than what it is? I used to grab everything at once and go. Nope, I got to go take a bag out to the car, take my cup, take my wallet, do all this stuff out to the car first, and then I get ready to feed the dogs, and then I go. Like, I don't know about you, but it gets a little bit monotonous. Not to mention then the stores we have to go to. Now we got to go find stores that we know have bathrooms. Man, we don't got time for that shit. We got to make sure the store's got bathrooms and we're good with it. So now we have to go make sure we find a restroom. So every week I'm going to leave you with the quote of the week. So I write them down in all my books. So this week's quote, I want you to think about it as every step forward is a victory, no matter how small it is. So every step forward is a victory, no matter how small it is. So please make sure I will provide usually both sides of an issue. You can play devil's advocate. I can play devil's advocate whenever necessary. No holding back. It doesn't hurt my feelings. You can send me your feedback and questions to authorstephencandace@gmail.com. And don't forget my website, www.authorstephencandace.com. Check that shit out. Now, there is a topic you want to discuss, please just ask and send that shit out. We will talk to you soon. Holla. You have a great day and looking forward in our next adventure, number 3, week 3, season 2, DCP Talks is out.